I'm gonna need a gun.
I thought you'd never ask. What we have here is a Carne Custom 2011. This has a 5.3-inch KKM barrel with 2 ports. It's a hybrid, 3-port binary engineering compensator, frame-mounted optic with a hollow Sun 510C, slide racker, Limcat, shield ambi safety, flared magwell, 170mm mag, 2-pound, sub 2-pound trigger pull. And for those intimate encounters, this kitty really knows how to purr.
Where did you get this?
I got it online. I asked for my mom and dad's permission before I logged on to the World Wide Web and placed the order. Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel today. We are going to be taking a look at some of my race guns and focusing on the experience of what it is like to shoot open division. Now, race guns can be a very polarizing topic in the shooting community. Some people view them as impractical, to some seeing them as a driving force for innovation. USPSA and IPSC and the guns of their respective communities that they've built have been at the forefront of innovating shooting techniques and equipment, which eventually make their way into the mainstream shooting world. Features like flared magwells, compensators, mounting optics to handguns were all pioneered in competition. These features have been used by USPSA and IPSC competitors for a very long time, and in 1990, in Front Sight magazine, the president of USPSA noted that optics-mounted handguns won 3 major championships. That was USPSA National, IPSC, and Bianchi Cup. Marked a significant shift in the way that people were beginning to shoot, and it was also tackling some of the predominant attitudes that optics were only going to slow handguns down or that they were impractical were in fact false.
Anybody who thinks that scope will slow you down can study this stage again. Jerry Barnhart finishes with a very good 83 points.
These equipment and technique innovations that were only seen as being suited for the controlled environment of the competitive match are now becoming more and more common use. Consider the releases and trends that we have recently that directly draw from the competitive world. SIG has launched the 365 Macro XL, which comes with a built-in compensator. Staccato has launched its double-stack 1911s that directly trace themselves from the competitive world, and they've been adopted by police departments in the U.S. Marshal Service. Glock has released numerous guns with ported barrels from the factory like the 19C, and I cannot understate how impactful the Roland Special Glock 19 has been on greater tastes in the gun world. Many competitive innovations have even proven themselves on the battlefield. Jeff Gerwich's channel, Modern Tactical Shooting, provides excellent first-hand experience on how the competitive world directly influenced the choices that he made on his combat rifle. So how much of a difference really is there between race pistols and service pistols if many of the features pioneered in competition are now basically expected or coming into more popularity on service-style handguns? And the only real area that I can think of would be the form factor in terms of the weight and size. Race guns typically tend to be heavier and larger, but in terms of features, there's hardly a difference between the two anymore. As you can see, this, my open division gun, is it's pretty heavy and it's pretty big. It comes with a long compensator and all of this stuff. And many of you might think, like, this is pretty impractical. But if I held up a Glock with a 6-second mount and a KKM compensator, many of you probably wouldn't even bat an eye. We shouldn't let our current views of what is impractical prevent us from using things or experimenting with new technology and techniques. We've only seen the way things have been, we haven't seen the way things will be, so we shouldn't hold ourselves back because we don't know what's going to be more innovative or practical or common use or what's going to really come to fruition. So, with that being said, let's take a look at my open gun and my limited gun. Let's start off by talking about my limited gun first. It was my first 2011, and I really learned a lot about what I preferred, what I didn't like, what I did like, that really informed the choices that I wanted to make in terms of parts on my open gun. Now, this is a 5-inch KKM barrel. It's chambered in .40. Why is it chambered in 40 if it's basically a dying cartridge? Well, in order to receive major power factor scoring in USPSA limited division, 40 or 357 SIG is the minimum caliber that you need. Definitely, in my view, contributing to it being a dying division on top of it being the irons division. Virtually nobody uses 357 SIG. It's a cool cartridge, but not a lot of people use it. Now, this is a... lock back the slide so my viewers can see it. A sight block. And what this is this is just a weight attached to the end of a threaded barrel. It adds more static weight to help keep the gun down. Because this is 40, it is going to be recoiling a little bit more. You want as much weight as possible to help drive these guns. Chile Extra Aggressive Grips. These grips are really awesome, and I really enjoyed this profile. I was coming from the CZ world, and I really to me, it felt very similar. I really enjoy this cut rather than the traditional 1911 one. On the clock, it's not really something that you notice too much, but it's something that I just liked. The extra aggressive texture, it works amazingly, especially on really hot and sweaty days. However, if you're shooting a major match, which is going to have 12, 15 stages, this is really going to grate on your hands, and it definitely has rubbed my hands raw. On a local stage, on a local match, that has about 6 stages. These are perfectly fine. They work wonderfully. I have PVD, titanium-ish, gray, whatever they call it, coating on this. It works really well, but I've definitely worn this gun a lot. And for my next gun, I wanted to go with something a little bit more tough like the DLC. So let's take a look at my open gun here from top to bottom. Now this gun is chambered in 9x19, and I'm shooting major power factor through it, which is 124 grain jacketed hollow point in my case, pushed to 1,450 feet per second. This is no joke. You would not be able to shoot that load in any other handgun other than something that is proven, like the fully supported chambers that KKM, Infinity, and a few other barrel makers offer. Definitely not something that you'd want to put through a factory gun unless it has been absolutely proven that it can handle it. A lot of open division guys also use 38 Super Comp. It's a pretty cool cartridge. It does give you a little bit more room to play with because the overall length is longer and there's a little bit more capacity with it, so you can play with the powders. But for me, I just went with 9x19 because 9 brass is plentiful. So we've got 170 millimeter mag right here. This is from MBX, and it can hold 29 rounds out of the box. You can even fit 30 in here, but it is non-reloadable. You do have to work in the springs a little bit more before you can get that. Got the Chile Big Hands flared magwell. Reloading isn't really a big part of open division because you can fit so many rounds in a magazine, and at major matches the round limit is at 32. It might lead some people that are unfamiliar with the sport to question, well, why have these flared magazines in the first place if you're really not going to be reloading a whole lot? In my view, because there's such an emphasis on speed, I really don't want to have to worry about making the most precise reload as possible when I'm running as fast as I possibly can to get from point A to point B and then get my gun up so I can shoot sooner. I went with the Chile grips. I got the standard texture on there. I really enjoy that, especially when I chalk up my hands. Again, went with that profile that I know and love, and I really, really like this grip. Couldn't recommend it enough. Now, over here, we have my Limcat Shield Ambi Safety. I really enjoy this, but I didn't realize how pointy it was going to be. This really sharp around the edges here. A lot of people don't like it because of that, and it definitely took me a little bit getting used to kind of wear it in. But I really like the real estate that it provides your thumbs to rest on. You can see how wide they are. So I really like that aspect of it. It's very, very comfortable to shoot. Got a Holosun 510C mounted here. Really enjoy this optic. I know it's typically intended for rifles, but I really like it just because of the window size. Now, I typically only use the standard dot. I really just like using basic dots. I find that they work the best for myself. I went with another KKM barrel. This is a 5.4-inch hybrid barrel. If you're unfamiliar with what a hybrid barrel is, it's a rib on the top of the barrel. You have to cut your slide out, especially just to make use of it, but it also adds static weight to the gun that helps keep it down. But the real advantage that I like from the hybrid barrel is that if you port it, like they have these 2 ports on top of here, it gives those ports direct access to vent the gases. The ports really help flatten out the gun because they bleed off some of the exhaust the combustion that's happening in the barrel. Instead of sending all that gas right back to the slide, it allows it to kind of be vented out. I went with this just because it's also recommended as the most optimal setup from Binary Engineering, which made my 3-port titanium compensator. I was really impressed with the way that this compensator was designed because they applied some mathematics and data to it. So ultimately that informed my decision, and so far I've been pretty happy with it. You can see from this clip just how much gas gets vented out through the compensator in the porting. This gun has a Vario trigger that's sub 2 pound pull, very minimal reset, which contributes to very fast splits. You'll notice there is no thumb rest. I'm pretty picky about thumb rests. I don't really enjoy them. I'm really funny about which angle they're at, how big they are, so I just opted to go with none. I'm not really convinced that they do a whole lot for the guns anyway. I think if you take a look at a lot of guns under slow motion, it tells you exactly what's going on, and I've never really been convinced that it was the biggest driver that really helped flatten guns out from all the reciprocation that's happening from the slide. Main thing that's going to flatten your guns out is going to be, of course, a very strong grip with your support hand and these ports. One thing I do want to also state is having a frame-mounted optic allows you to track this dot so well. I really, really enjoy it. Now, of course, you can track a dot with a slide ride gun too if you have a really solid, firm grip, but this is also way less wear and tear on the optic as well because you're not shaking it to death. I'd really like to see frame-mounted optics become more popular. I think that they were starting to kind of get in there with the ALG 6-second mounts and the Agency Arms frame mounts, but we'll see kind of where the future leads. Now, this gun I've had to clean about once every 1,000 rounds. You're running such over-pressured rounds regularly through this gun, and I've got about 3,000 rounds through this so far, which is basically just getting started, but you really do have to clean it. I was able to get away with cleaning very little my limited gun, but this gun, you're definitely going to want to clean more. All of that brass being blown around from the overpressured cases definitely is going to get in stuff, and you don't want it to interfere, because every gun is going to have a limit to how much junk it can handle. With a typical factory gun, you can get away with a lot, but with these guns, especially the fact that they're hand-fitted and custom-built, you're going to have to take a little bit more care of them. So with all that being said, what is it like to shoot in open division? Now, one thing I do want to preface this is that as of right now, I only have about 3,000 rounds down on my open gun. I'm just getting started on my open division journey, but I have found it to be a very challenging experience. USPSA is very much a mental game because you have a lot of choices and options to make, and with open division, you have a lot more freedom to choose how you attack a stage. Because you have to reload less, you can pick where you want to reload on a stage with much greater freedom, and you can choose an area that it is most optimal to. You also get freedom to engage targets. You have a lot more options at your disposal, whether you want to engage targets up close, on the move, at a distance. I found that when I competed in Limited, there were a lot of targets that I'm like, okay, this is a difficult shot, I really can't take a move on this, or I'm going to have to engage these a little bit closer up. With open, having that dot, having a very flat shooting gun, I'm allowed to choose how I want to go about things. Now, because of this, it does make it more of a challenge because everybody else in open can also make these choices too, and I really like that aspect because it really pushes you to shoot a stage in the most hyper-optimal way that you can, because you know everybody else is going to be as well. Now, with that being said, in any division, everybody's always going to be trying to shoot a stage the most optimum way possible, but I've just found myself being pushed in newer ways that I hadn't before in the other divisions that I've shot. If there's anything that you think I missed or that you have questions on, please let me know in the comment section. I'm always really happy to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed.